Charlotte Gibson, and today I am joined by Lynsey Gregory, and we're discussing a really important topic, which is mental health in the workplace. What has particularly prompted us making this video is millions of people are likely to lose their jobs or become financially unstable. And the sad reality is, if you have problem debt, you are far more likely to contemplate or complete suicide. And in fact, 1 in 8 completed suicides are directly attributed to problem debt. Now, whilst you have your employees working for you, you do have a duty of care. So this video is really there to help you start to devise that strategy for employees, and realise that mental health strategies come in multiple strands. It goes across financial wellness, it goes across physical wellness, and it goes across social well-being. My first question to you, Lynsey, I guess as the guru in this space, is what role do you think businesses have in supporting employees' mental well-being?
I think it's vitally important, Charlotte, that businesses look after the mental health of their employees. Statistically, 77% of suicides are committed by men. And of that percentage, the majority of those men are between the ages of 45 and 49. So this was quite shocking to me. I assumed that the age would be much younger. But it also shows that, for me, it's not just younger demographic businesses that need to have a clear mental health strategy within their business. It's all businesses of all shapes and all sizes. And actually, if we look at the statistics, it's probably the businesses that we would least expect to have a mental health strategy in place that are the ones that actually do need it. So going back to 2017, I'm sure you're probably aware that Theresa May commissioned a report to establish what businesses were doing to support the mental health of their employees. The results of the report were quite staggering in terms of the amount of money it costs the UK economy, purely and simply related to employees in the workforce that were absent from work for mental health conditions. The figure was between 74 and 99 billion, which is just huge. It's an absolutely huge figure. So as a result of that report, there were several recommendations that were made to be enforced by businesses between 2017 and 2030. And there were 6 key recommendations that came out of the Thriving at Work report, which was commissioned. 2 of them just that come to mind for me is, one is encouraging an open and honest dialogue about mental health in the workplace. You know, it's not a taboo subject. It's something that needs to be talked about openly and honestly. And also developing mental health awareness amongst employees. You know, they need to know how to spot signals and signs of people that are maybe struggling, and then also know how to access the services that might help. My overarching response to this, there's a huge responsibility and a huge role for employers across all sectors to play in making sure they've got a clear strategy and resource in place for their employees.
How do you think this crisis is going to differ from other crises that we've seen before?
So I think the key thing for me is the isolation and the remoteness. I don't think any of us in our lifetime have ever had to experience anything quite like this. And whilst we've been in lockdown for a really long period of time now, it's still not normal. It's not what we're used to. I think a real challenge for employers at the moment is to be able to spot and identify when an employee is struggling. I think technology is a double-edged tool. I think it's actually amazing because it has allowed us to carry on seeing the people that we love and that we care about, and have the social networking with our colleagues. But equally, you can have Zoom overload, and Zoom fatigue is a thing now where people are drained and they're tired. It's that always-on culture. So I think it's a real balance about how and when you use technology. I think the other thing is people in isolation, they're going to cope with things in different ways. So I have lots of friends who have got the health buzz, they're out cycling, they're running, they look amazing, they've got great results. Other friends have reached for slightly more easily accessible vices, so whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, whatever it might be. So I think, again, a challenge for employers at the moment is, how do they know which ones are truly struggling? How do they know, the ones that maybe are reaching for a bottle of wine just a little bit too often each week. How are they going to notice it? How are they going to find that out if they're not on that regular sort of contact with them? So a lot of challenges, I think, in terms of the current crisis, and it's not an easy job.
If you, like me, have gone through the mental health first aid training, which teaches you it's to spot the signs and signpost. Well, a lot of that is reliant on face-to-face contact. It is reliant on people, subtle behavioural patterns which make a sudden shift, either in an overly positive way or an overly perceived negative way. So even when someone may be in crises or really desperate for support and help, as you say, it is very, very difficult for businesses to be able to do that. Where do you start in terms of devising a mental health strategy? What's step one look like?
For me, step one is actually the employer taking a step back, almost going back to the drawing board and saying, if I was going to design a wellbeing and mental health strategy for my employees, what do I want it to look like? And then actually do a review piece, either with your employee benefits consultant or a provider. What benefits have they actually already got in place? We work with countless clients that really do not understand everything that's available to them in terms of any policies they may or may not have. So it's that education piece. Back to the drawing board. What have I got? What does it do for me? How can it help my employees? There's so much information that I think from an HR or employer perspective, how do you sift through the amount of information that's there? It's just colossal. So key thing for me is bring it back to basics, work out what you want, but also work out what your employees want. Don't assume, unless they ask their employees via surveys or whatever medium they want, they're not going to know. And if they assume, they could get it really wrong. So ask, find out, delve, and then build your strategy around it.
Brilliant advice, to be perfectly honest. Starting with an audit and then getting employees' feedback. And with mental health in particular, it's very easy to do what the Joneses are doing and implement what they're doing, or even, dare I say, tick a box. Well, it's simply not going to cut through this. There will be consequences in terms of business output, but more importantly, on your actual employees' well-being, if you don't tailor a strategy for them. Having something which is swish and jazzy, that's definitely designed for, let's say, Gen Z, may not appeal to everyone who doesn't fit that format. And so whilst it looks really swish and it's really innovative, you have to really know your audience. Now, maybe they will absolutely engage with it, but it has to be the right thing for your people. And my next question to you is, how should a business prepare, plan and monitor a mental health strategy?
Evaluate what is already in place. There are providers out there that will work with employers over a 12-month period. They will conduct a mental health audit. They will be able to provide hints and tips on, are they achieving the 6 key measures? If they are, brilliant. How do they maintain and keep that up? If they're not, they can suggest ways to improve, and they'll have regular touch points, 3, 6, 12 months, to see how those things are being implemented and actually what impact it's having. So you've got your monitoring in that as well. Also, an early intervention strategy. The quicker you can intervene in a situation where someone is struggling, whether that's physical or mentally, the quicker you're likely to get results, and the less likely it is that employee needs to have time away from the workplace. The staff survey thing for me is huge, and it needs to be encouraging honest feedback. It needs to be anonymous and it needs to be honest. And again, it has to come from leadership. I think those survey requests need to come from leadership and be, fed down, because, if you've got, if your leaders are demonstrating that they're open, they're honest, and that, maybe they even talk about maybe some of their own struggles and difficulties that they've had, I think that just breeds the right environment and the right culture within a business for them to actually truly work with proper strategy to rolling out that mental health piece.
So what we've got so far, we've got audit, we've got feedback, we've got creating an honest, open, dynamic environment, We've got making sure that there's multi-layers to the strategy, financial, physical. But out of all of that, what is your key takeaway for people watching today?
The key takeaway for employers today, bearing in mind we are in a really difficult economical situation as well, in terms of everybody's cutting back, or that it feels like everyone's cutting back. Now is absolutely not the time to cut back on employee benefits and investing in your staff and your employees. There was a recent report we discussed, the Deloitte report back in January 2020. It's again, reiterated how much, the mental health was costing the UK economy, but it also found out that for every £1 you invest, you get £5 back on your investment. Now, I think that's a pretty good return on investment when it comes to mental health. So I think the key element is it's not time to cut back. And secondly, use the resources that you've already got available. You'll be really surprised when you actually strip it back and see what's available, that you've got plenty that you can use to help build that strategy. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you so much, Lynsey, for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it. This is Locked In Conversations. See you next time.